Dear members of academic communities, honored guests, brothers and sisters, my name is Petro Terlecki. I'm Doctor of Theology and lecturer at the Ukrainian Catholic University in Lviv. Also, I work at the Student and Penitential Chaplaincy, and now I would like to share with you some opinions about the role of religion on the great Ukrainian event on the Maidan. The last month of 2013, as well as the first 2 months of 2014, became turning points for my country, Ukraine. It is at that time that there were begun massive and complex process of radical reforms in the nation, which continue to this day with varied success. The tolerance point for political, legal, and economic abuses reached its saturation point after the refusal of the president of that time to take the significant geopolitical step, which would bear with it substantive democratic reforms of political institutions, courts, financial government institution. Final illusions about the existence of a human face in the government of that time were blown away by the brutal beating of the protesting students on the night of November 31, 2013. One still cannot forget the lines of brindled special units of the police, which, in an animal-like fervor, crack the head of students, young men and women, video cameras, photographic cameras of journalists. They break and stamp with their feet the national flag and national emblems, sadistically persecute and continue to beat the already wounded on the ground. Thankfully, students and lecturers from our Ukrainian Catholic University, one of the initiators of the demonstration, had left the area several hours prior to the beginning of the attack. However, this does not mean that by now we have not had any wounded or dead casualties. Pride is not found in the list of Christian virtues. However, if one understands religion as a responsibility for the existence of truth, love, and justice, not only theoretically but in action, then I feel pride for the fact that it was faith, religion, and church in Ukraine that became one of the most significant elements which relied people in their desire to restore order in the distorted world of corruption and lack of law. The conviction itself in the existence of absolute truth, which does not succumb to human manipulation, stands higher than personal and corporative wealth. Led the people to the streets. Bishops, priests, monks, nuns, men and women of all ages, the faithful of the Catholic and Orthodox churches of the Byzantine Rite, Roman Catholics, Armenian Apostolic Church, Protestants, Christian Baptists, and others, regardless of the terrible weather, humidity, 20 degrees centigrade, freezing weather with occasional snow and blizzards, stood day and night on the streets in the capital of Kiev and in regional centers. In sincerity and simplicity, often lacking appropriate clothes and shoes, they, through prayers and their presence, testified to the existing truth, which should become embedded also in our lives. In interacting with the meeting participants on the Maidan, I was surprised that thousands of people without a clear confessional affiliation, but those who only traditionally or culturally imagined themselves as a Christians or believers, solidified around us. Standing for truth in faith, perhaps for the first time in the 23 years of Ukraine's independence, brought an unusual example of inter-religious unity. The representatives of the Tatar people from Crimea sent a chef who, in a giant copper pot for hours, prepared their national dish, plov, rice and lamb for the participants. No restaurant can serve a better plov. After the occupation of Crimea by Russian soldiers because of threats to the communities of faithful of Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Kievan Patriarchate, the Muslims opened the doors of their mosques for the faithful with their priests to conduct liturgies there. Every day on the Maidan began with prayer. Priests of all confessions jointly began with God's prayer, Our Father, Hail Mary, and read the Holy Scripture out loud on the stage in front of all the Maidan participants. On the Maidan Square there was a church constructed of tents in which various liturgies were said, Eucharist, words, liturgy, and finally prayers for the wounded and the dead. Witnesses of the most horrific events of February 1820, 2014, claim that at the beginning of the shots from automatic weapons and the sniper rifles while the Maidan was although being stormed by units with armored protective ironclad gear, the church tent caught fire as did all the barricades, and with its fire it formed a safety zone for those who were standing behind the meeting participants. It is noteworthy that there were no more barricades or impediments behind the church, and moving behind it would have meant total non-obstruction of all present on the Maidan. However, it was possible for the police to cross into and take over this area. The criminal authorities felt the religious foundation and support of the Maidan and resorted to all sorts of manipulations in order to frighten the representatives of separate churches. This included a letter on January 6, 2014, on the eve of the feast of the Nativity of the Lord, according to our Julian calendar, sent to the head of the Ukrainian Catholic Church of the Byzantine Rite, Patriarch Sviatoslav. The letter was sent by the Ministry of Culture with a forewarning that the priests of his church may not hold liturgies outside of the special designated places or without permission of the authorities. In the case of not following this order, the ministry threatened to withdraw the license of legitimacy of the Ukrainian Catholic Church of the Byzantine Rite, or as it is known in Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. On the 23rd year of independence of Ukraine, the government permitted itself to threaten the church with a return to the catacombs, new murderers, similar to how it was during the Soviet time from 1946 till 1990, when journalists from objective TV stations and press requested an explanation of the letter from the ministry representatives. They were told that the text was delivered to them by representatives of the internal security of Ukraine, and the ministry was forced to sign it. A very important result of the religious awareness of the Maidan was the fact that the opposition participants, in spite of the numerous persecution and threats, did not respond in the same manner to authority representatives of their hired provocateurs. The right to one's own safety and the right to urge changes by the authorities did not expand into the principle of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Often the Maidan guards would catch tens of provocateurs dressed in civilian clothes. They had in various ways harmed the gathered participants of the meeting. In order not to pass them on to the chance of a tribunal by the crowd, they were often accompanied by priests with crosses. After the saboteurs publicly apologized to the people, they were released. In an interview, one of the guards of the Maidan admitted that after the first death from armed weapons, the anger was enormous. However, I thank God, said he, that this anger did not transform into massive violence. And I believe herein is our strength. We did not kill them, did not tear them to pieces for that which they did to us. We simply let them go. Already at the beginning of the protest activity, more than 10 renowned Ukrainian stage singers and performers gathered together and sang the song "A Brother for a Brother" to the words of Alexander Polozhinsky and music from Cossack System, which became one of the unofficial hymns of the Maidan. Its refrain is striking in the depth of its simple yet prophetic words. Do not raise your arm on your own. A brother will not say evil about another brother. Take the punch, receive, suffer. A brother for a brother, one for another. Events in Ukraine remind me very much of the history of the freeing from oppression and the creation of a community of God in the conditions of Egyptian slavery. It is at the moments of the greatest trials that God shows his name and through this his nature. The book of the Exodus, the holy book of Jews and Christians, presents God as one who empathizes with the misfortune of his people. I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and I have given heed to their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their suffering. However, the manifestation of his sacrament does not only take place on the background of political freedom from oppression, but first of all within the framework of the changes in the faithful themselves. Only in striving to strengthen faith, brotherhood, justice, transformation of hardened hearts, can there be born a real people of God, who will legitimately invoke the sacramental name of God. Actually, for the first time in the Bible, in relation to the faithful, the sacred term Holy Congregation and Congregation of Israel is used in the context of adoration of God and contemplation about his saving acts throughout ages. On the Maidan, during the time of the public opposition in Ukraine, the paradigm about the release from political oppression seemed to be well demonstrated thanks to realizing one's responsibility as a faithful. Nonetheless, the challenge towards the fully authentic creation of a holy congregation continues to stand before us, before my generation and the generation of our youth and small children in Ukraine. Peace, freedom, love shall fill our hearts and spread from there in our societies and countries. Thank you.